Ladies and gentlemen, presenting the Professor Greg Dooley and the Pundit Steve Clark. Men, take the mic.
Hang another banner. It's the Professor and the Pundit with Greg Dooley and Steve Clark, and we are proudly presented by Nick Hopwood, who's a certified financial planner, founder, and president of Peak Wealth Management. Retire with peak confidence. Visit Nick's website at peakwm.com.
Steve went to Indianapolis. We're going to talk about that. And a programming note, we are going to be back for the next 6 weeks, all the way through Michigan's spring game. So stay tuned. And as you know, we usually drop on the early part of the week. So look for us out there anywhere you can get your podcast. Got to give some love to my man, Nick Hopwood. We've been texting Steve with Nick through not only this latest run, but also through the women's hoops. It's been a lot of fun. But Steve, I'm excited to say we have a new sponsor. And it's Maverick Technology Partners. And the company founder is a friend of mine, a guy named Tim Adams, happens to be an old college friend and a loyal listener of the Professor and the Pundit. So we're going to talk about Maverick later on. We're going to say a little bit more about Nick. But first, we got to head off with the headline, Steve. Michigan captures another title. Another banner is hung. In this case, of course, the Big Ten tournament title. We should put it in context, and I got to start with this turnaround, the soul-sucking, and I call it that because I didn't even want to think about the basketball program, man, that Dusty May did. He turned this around from the experience with Juwan Howard, and Dusty May in 1 year turned this around. It's hard for me to wrap my head around what just has happened. Can you believe it?
Let's steal something from Michigan State. January, February, March, May.
Very good. That's a t-shirt. Where is Underground Printing when you need them? That's beautiful. I'm sure it's coming. And here's the other thing, Steve. You know, someone pointed this out, and I thought it was a good point. We had kind of a weird regular season with this new 18-team, huge Big Ten league, right? And, of course, this scheduling where you're guaranteed to play a couple people or most of the people twice didn't happen. So, to me, the fact that we won this tournament, where, of course, not every team was represented, but all the good ones, that we came out on top is particularly special and impressive, so I love it.
I've always preferred to win the regular season title. I've always felt that it has more merit. And I know this is going to sound like I'm being hypocritical and not honest because of yesterday's results, but as someone who believes in who and where you play them, and now that there's only 3 home and homes in a 17-opponent schedule, the tournament title is getting a little more cred to me.
Yeah, it definitely, well, it feels that way today as we bask in the glow of it for sure. Like we've talked about, like all season, Steve, man, it's tough to watch these guys sometimes. Even in this, this great moment, that first half was about as ugly as it can get. Steve, I'm not going to lie. You were there. You didn't have a choice. Maybe you pulled out your phone. But I switched to the Players' Championship golf coverage at one point, and guess what? It was on rain delay, and I still watched. Traitor! Just because the Golf Channel does such a good job of talking about the weather, I actually had to look away. Part of it was nerves, but it is tough to watch. But winning helps. So, Steve, what did you see out there at Indy? Tell us about it?
Winning definitely helps. I think what you saw was a team that was playing its 4th game in 4 days against another team that was playing its 3rd game in 3 days. That's a big part of it. The atmosphere or the lack of one was surprising. This was my first ever Big Ten tournament game that I've ever witnessed. Been to an NCAA tournament game in the same place at Gainbridge Fieldhouse in Indianapolis to watch Michigan play Colorado State a couple of years ago. That was a completely different atmosphere than the one that I was at. I imagine the atmosphere was probably like one back in the day when you attended the 3rd place consolation game of the Final Four, where nobody seems like they have a vested interest in it anymore. They wanted to be entertained first. And for the first half, Michigan was shooting under 30%. Wisconsin was under 25%. It was Brick City, okay? From outside, an extremely low shooting percentage at the rim. As each possession went, I'm thinking, well, what do? You're not doing anything particularly well, but you're just probably feeling, well, after 3 straight inside shots, why don't somebody take a 3? Hey, after 5 straight 3-point misses, why don't somebody pound it inside or drive the lane or do something? It included teammates fighting for the same rebounds with the ball eventually going out of bounds. And I think the first half was best illustrated when the ball got stuck between the rim and the backboard.
Right, the wedgie, as they called it on TV. Yeah, that was pretty much it.
That's Raftery, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Raftery called it the wedgie.
I love it. You know, sure, the defense gets some credit, but Steve, I agree with you. It was probably the toil that was on both teams to get there. Wisconsin had some great looks, too, in the beginning. And to your point, it seemed like we touched but never really got every rebound that was going our way. Yeah. And they were getting it. It was tough, man. It was tough.
Michigan could not hold on to the ball. Wisconsin could not shoot. When the Badgers finally broke out in the second half, their crowd started to get loud, but it was only temporary. But it seemed like a 20-point lead. When you're up by 10, like 37-27, and you're midway through the second half, it might take Michigan the rest of the game just to get to 37. But then things subsided. The offenses started to find their way, and I would say probably the last 12 minutes of the game was exciting for both teams. And again, the crowd wanted to be entertained first before they showed their vocal reaction, and they finally did. I think the most impressive thing that I saw was how fast the Wisconsin fans sneaked out of the arena. There were Wisconsin fans to our left, and I don't remember them shuffling past me. There were Wisconsin fans behind me. I looked, and they were gone like a Back to the Future Polaroid. It was so incredible.
What was the crowd? Was it split? Was it?
Yeah, I think it was about 50-50. I think the crowd vocalness was about 50-50 until Michigan started pulling away with it. Then they really let themselves known. But I got to tell you, during the TV timeouts, the crowd shots into the people into the stands, which is constant. You remember Jerry Jones always constantly showing the crowd in between each play.
Yeah.
Well, Gainbridge was showing the fans in between TV timeouts, and nobody looked happy. Nobody was cheering. It was just like, let's get this game over with. And what's the best way to go home and get out of my parking garage?
Well, thank goodness, though, we were on the good side of that, and it is impressive. I saw that Ward gave a huge hug to Dusty May. There were a lot of people that thought after that the state game and some others that we were going to lose out. We were just going to lose out. And here we are, and what a great thing to have a basketball team to cheer for in March.
Well, Ward Manuel should be hugging Dusty May for all the flack that he took with how he handled basketball before that with Juwan Howard, hockey, football, and Tony Batiti and Jim Harbaugh, and how he got gone. There was a lot of arrows slung Ward Manuel's way, and boy, this was a great hire.
Yeah, so let's give him credit. It looks like a great hire, and what a start. I love it. But we got more business to do now, and of course, the committee comes down. You're probably busy filling out your brackets right now. A little bit of surprise by a lot of people that Michigan was a 5 seed, and let's talk about this a bit, right? And they got a Thursday night slot. So some people, hey, they're playing Sunday afternoon, evening. Maybe the committee will consider that and give them a little bit of a break. No, they're playing Thursday night in Boulder, Colorado at night. But I will say I was not expecting a big boost from winning, because I've noticed this over the last decade plus that the committee, they just don't give a big benefit for winning the Big Ten title. It can help you get in, right? But beyond that, they don't put a ton of emphasis on that, especially the final result.
It's been my experience, Greg, that they are essentially done with the brackets early Sunday morning, unless the Big Ten has a possible bid stealer in the final, which forces them to readjust the brackets. But there's too much evidence that the winners of the Big Ten tournament really don't rise, and it forces them to work so quickly to the point of making a huge mistake that they don't bother.
Yeah, and that obviously translates to seeds. So if you're looking at seeds, here's the math wizard for you. 5 seeds are technically ranked between 17 and 20 by the committee. I think that math's right? So Michigan fans are pissed when they look at the standings, they look at other data. That's been a talk track here. We should have done better. We just won the tournament. And of course, fueling that is right before this podcast, Michigan comes out in the AP poll as number 14, which would have given them a 4 seed. So there's that. Where are you at with this, Steve? So tell me.
For one, the merit of the AP poll is just one set of analytics that I just don't even bother with anymore. It used to be the be-all, end-all, along with the coaches, but there's a lot further analytics in all of this. So when it comes down to it, I was, one, shocked to hear the committee chair say, Bubba Cunningham, say that they moved Michigan up based on winning the Big Ten. You mean they would have been a 6 seed had they lost to Wisconsin? I mean, we have learned over the years that close losses don't help, but apparently close wins do.
Yeah.
They do matter. I mean, I'm finding this hard to understand. And basically the universal complaint from all our listeners and all the people that follow Michigan basketball, the universal complaint is the seeding is a result of a personal grudge, and people are asking out loud how they come to this conclusion. So I've taken that to be my task for the last 24 hours, Greg. The NCAA Division I Basketball Committee uses not only their eyes and ears and discussion points, but they actually go through a number of results-based metrics, including the net, KenPom, ESPN's BPI, ESPN's SOR, wins above bubble, and the Torvik ratings. And my research of the analytics actually surprisingly reveals the committee ignored these analytics and did bump Michigan up.
Okay, so despite what everyone's feeling about the 5 seed, if you look at the data that we know they use, they did give them a little bit of a bump.
Yeah.
At some point here.
Right. I don't want to go into the minutia of all the numbers, so...
Yeah.
But just briefly, I mean, the T rank, the Torvik, had Michigan 26, behind Illinois and behind UCLA. That's that one particular analytic. What is a 26? That's a 7 seed, okay? Michigan appeared to rank in the strength of schedule and the strength of record to put them in 12th, but that was still one spot behind Wisconsin that ranked 11th. Michigan's wins above bubble ranking was 18th. And it was behind Wisconsin, Purdue, and Maryland. And they were a 4 seed before losing to Illinois, Maryland, and Michigan State. That's why I kind of had them being seeded at 6. But that was before they won a game in the Big Ten tournament. And I figured if they were going to win the Big Ten tournament, they would at least get to a 5, possibly a 4. Nobody leading up to the tournament really had Michigan as a 2 or a 3 leading up to it. So it shouldn't be that shocking. Last thing I'll say, Greg, is that Wisconsin in November, December beat Arizona. That was a top 10 team. That same day, Purdue beat Alabama. That was ranked in the top 10. While Michigan didn't really have any marquee ranked wins in November and December. In fact, they lost to a lot of ranked teams in November, December, like the ranks of Arkansas and Oklahoma.
Okay, excellent. So it is going to be Thursday night, pretty late, right? Is it scheduled to be whatever? It's after that, the first game, so it's around 10 o'clock at night,
right?
Which is a little old for the professor here. I mean, a little late rather for the professor.
So I don't have that at the top of my head, but my guess is Texas A&M is playing in the 7:30 game right before it, and what they want to try to do is give the higher seed the extra couple hour break, if possible.
Great.
And because otherwise you're not having Texas A&M play a noon game and Michigan playing the 10 p.m. game, and then 36 hours later they're facing off. But they will give the advantage to the higher seeded team.
So tell me about our opponent. I looked at the record and go, whoa, these guys have won a lot of games, but other than that, I don't know anything about them.
They are the Tritons, and they represent the Big West Conference. Their logo suggests they're from Arizona State, but you'll get over it. The analytics committee do love them, and so do the people who love picking 5 versus 12 upsets, because Michigan appears to be one of the top 5-12 upsets on the board. UCSD has the nation's longest winning streak. They're 30-4, 15-game winning streak right now, and the conference's player of the year in Aniwanawa Tate Jones. He's a combo guard forward who has been just short of a triple-double in his last 2 games, Greg. And over the last 10 games, this team shoots from over 40% from 3, and they're really good about holding a team's shooting percentage well below their averages. They also force a lot of turnovers. Hayden Gray's going to be a pest out there for them. These are the challenges for Michigan. On the other side, UCSD doesn't rebound very well. That's good news. and they're only average in size. Michigan has a much better size component, especially with, Danny Wolf and Vlad Golden, okay? 2 7-footers in there. They don't shoot inside the arc very well, and apparently they don't have a lot of depth. According to KenPom, they're 335th in bench minutes, according to them. So that's some of the weaknesses that, Michigan should be able to have an advantage with. I think it's going to rest on a couple of players shooting high-volume shots from behind the arc. And if they're not finding the arena, their comfort level, because let's face it, in the Big West, they're playing in a different type of gym. We talk about, when you're an arena team going and playing in a dome with a whole bunch of vast space behind you, it could affect your three-point shooting. Same thing goes for a team that plays in a tight gym that plays only in front of 1,500 people and then go out to an arena setting. It can screw you up.
Yeah, and in watching that Wisconsin game, I think we played really good defense inside the three-point line and inside and all that and forced them to do some things. But they had so many open looks. If these guys make their shots, this could be trouble if we don't adjust to it, right? Because you can't expect them to try to go in on Golden and on Wolf. They're going to shoot a lot of shots.
Because I don't think Michigan defends the three very well right now. They let teams like Michigan State and Illinois, who are not very good three-point shooters on the season, have a field day in the last couple of weeks. But again, one of the things that Michigan was doing towards the end of the year was this was the end of the regular season for them, was their time of the year where they got backloaded with the schedule. They played many more games in a short period of time, and every Big Ten team does it. So I'm not saying this is unfair to Michigan that the conference standings were affected. They just happened to be playing those many games in a short period of time at the end as opposed to in the beginning or the middle. But now, with a little bit of time off and some rest, maybe they got that back under track as evidence of winning the Big Ten tournament title.
Yep. Yeah. So, well, let's hope so. The other side of their bracket, the team that they would face, Texas A&M, what do we know about them?
Yeah, so Texas A&M is playing Yale in the first round, and that's where Danny Wolf played at. So
I think the TV wants to see that happen. It would be interesting,
They're a 4 seed. They finished in the SEC 5th, behind the Big Four, Florida, Auburn, Tennessee, Alabama. They were the 5th team in that conference. They defend very well. They're physical. They have a deep bench. And they have 2 superstar guards in Wade Taylor and Zurich Phelps, who, to be nice, are ball hogs. And as they go, their team goes.
There are a lot of Michigan transplants from the state of Michigan in Colorado. So I do expect many of those Michigan people, our Michigan, to show up for this game. And I expect some maize and blue in the crowd to root us on, even at this late hour, Steve, for us. But they're not the only team in the tournament. Of course, the ladies also got in with a 6 seed, Steve, and had a really, really good Big Ten tournament themselves. They made it to the semis. They ran into Juju Watkins, the player of the year in USC, but they had him on the ropes and they had him rattled, and they had Juju and complaining about calls and things like that. And it's the second time this year they've had the number 1 team on the ropes. So they came up short, had a great run, but they're coming in as a 6th seed. Liv Olson is the co-freshman of the year in the Big Ten. Silas Swords was on the all-tournament team, had a fantastic Big Ten tournament. And she even got a little dust-up at the end of the game with Juju. Yeah, so maybe Swords was throwing some Canadian hockey elbows at Juju. I don't know. But like I said, they can hang with anyone. They're going to play in South Bend, Indiana. That's good news, right? Right near Michigan, so there will be some people who travel. But their little pod there, of course, has Notre Dame in their little bracket. So they would play, theoretically, Notre Dame in the second round. We'll see how that goes. Notre Dame, the lower seed.
Whoever Michigan was going to play was going to have to deal with the home court of the place they were going to. So it's Notre Dame. Notre Dame is a 3 seed, kind of slipped a little bit towards the end of the season. I like the fact that it's within travel distance of Michigan women's basketball fans, that they could go to South Bend rather easily. It's only a 3-hour trip from Ann Arbor, 3.5. Shouldn't be a problem for them to show up. I mean, that's a lot better than, say, going to Denver to play at 10 o'clock at night. But as you said, there may be some Michigan fans in Denver to go through that.
I think what you want from any team is the ability to beat anybody on a given night, right? If you're not the number 1, number 2, or number 3 seed, that's what you want. That's what you've got with this women's team, Steve. I'm telling you, if the things go right, they can play with anybody. I'm super excited. I'm thinking about going. I think they play on Friday. I'm thinking about going, so we'll see.
They destroyed Maryland on Friday, and then they were hanging with the number one team in the country. Not only hanging, they were basically leading for 35 of the 40 minutes. It was the last 5 minutes where Michigan's back finally got broken by the Trojans, and they ended up winning the game. So if they can, with the week off, if they can continue to ride the wave that they had going into the Big Ten tournament, then yeah, I think Notre Dame could be in trouble.
All right. So before I have a few bracket takes, Steve, I want to hear yours, but this is a good time, I think, to introduce this segment and our new sponsor, Maverick Technology Partners. Like I said, Tim Adams is a listener. He's the company founder. What do? They provide technology consulting services. They staff people like IT project managers and engineers. They provide managed services where you can hand over your IT infrastructure and technology infrastructure to them to manage, to support, right? Do all that stuff. They just added a new service, which sounds really cool. If your company is looking for a new leader, a new CIO, they provide a CIO search service. I'm real excited to share more about these guys in the future. Maverick Technology Partners. You want to check them out? MaverickTechnologyPartners.com. That's Maverick Technology Partners, one word, .com. And I'll put some more information in the show notes. If you are interested, please check them out and let them know you heard them here on The Professor and the Pundit. So let's get to our bracket take, Steve. I have Maryland as a flyer in my bracket to make it to the Final Four because I think they're the type of team when they have all cylinders going that they can play with anybody. And they seem to have the makeup of a team that can do that. Of course, this is the kind of team that could bow out in the first round as well. So you got to be careful with this. And on the other side, I really like Ohio State. Believe it or not, in the women's team. I think they've got a fantastic point guard. Watch out for them. I also like Michigan. I'm taking them on a flyer, and absolutely I'm looking at that through maize and blue glasses. But I'm taking Michigan as the kind of team that could get it together, get out of South Bend, and really make some noise. What do you like, man?
Well, in the women's tournament, I think USC and UCLA are just absolutely towards the cream of the crop. Texas, I think, is having an outstanding year, and UConn is always going to be a factor. South Carolina is the defending champs, and although they may not be as good as last year, I mean, I think it's hard to argue against Dawn Staley in tournament time.
Yeah.
And I just like to see Kim Mulkey just blow up. Just literally go into flames.
Yeah.
Over at LSU. And then, you mentioned Ohio State, you liking them in the women's department. They beat Iowa by a point, I think, in the Big Ten tournament. And Iowa is a team. They not only beat USC, but they also only lost to UCLA by 2. That's a women's team that started like 1-6 in conference play, and they were an 11th seed going into the Big Ten tournament. The second half of the year, they've been just absolutely outstanding. So I think under their first-year head coach, who is an assistant under Lisa Bluter, that maybe they've found themselves and they could be a dangerous team in the NCAA.
Yeah,
tournament.
and I believe Iowa was Michigan's last home opponent. It wasn't senior night because they saved that for another team, but they really took it to Michigan. And so I think you're onto something there, Steve. I am doing brackets for my classes, both men and women's. I think I'll probably have some kind of NIL gear or something like that as a prize that I will obviously pay. No money involved, but it'll be a fun thing for my students. I asked them if they wanted to do it. They're like, absolutely.
A lot of people are liking Michigan State's chances of being in the Final Four as a 2 seed, and I think there's 2 reasons for that. One, Tom Izzo, okay? Tom Izzo's done it again. That I think Michigan State was considered like 9th or 10th in the preseason polls. And again, they have slowly built, and that team is getting better as the season goes along. And then the number 1 seed, Michigan State's going to have to go through them. That's Auburn, the number 1 overall seed. Why do people think so strongly of Michigan State upending Auburn? Well, it's twofold, because Auburn has lost 3 of their last 4 games, and they've lost their last 3 ranked matchups. And all of them are in conference play, of course, and the SEC is loaded. But you kind of see a team kind of stumbling going in against a team that has a clear identified culture as a team that is successful towards the end of the year. And that's why a lot of people are finding it fashionable across the nation to pick Michigan State as your representative of the South.
Yeah, no doubt. I think that's good. I think a Michigan State fan said to me that this is kind of a classic Tom Izzo team that you don't really have a superstar. They're a little gritty. They're a little gutty. There's some athleticism, and that's kind of what you're seeing. So we'll see. And, of course, State and Michigan State are in the same bracket. So that would be interesting, Steve, if somehow that comes to fruition.
They would only meet in the final. That's the only way that they could meet. That would certainly be a great matchup with the Final Four being on the line for both teams.
Yeah, fantastic.
And, Greg, before we move on, I mean, it's clear to me that spending time with my family at championship events is becoming the thing for me to do. And I've also found it can be really expensive. But because I've gotten to know people like Nick at Peak Wealth Management and others throughout the years, we've learned how to smartly invest as well as when to be stingy with our spending and when to say, go for it under any market conditions.
Right. And speaking of market conditions, if you follow the stock market, you know that for some parts of the market, it dipped into correction territory, which is what? 10% down. And that, makes people panic. That's when my kids start texting me about the stock market, right? What to do? Call Nick. Been waiting to get in the market, maybe. Perfect time. Call Nick. Are you getting a bigger tax refund this year than expected?
Yes.
Or worse? You are. Nick. Call Nick or call Steve and go to Oscars. Do you love the professor and the pundit? Yes, call Nick. He is at peakwm.com. That's peakwm.com. Thank you, Nick Hopwood. We love you, man. So I met some people that Nick should probably get to know down in Naples, Florida, Steve, which there are a few ballers down there in Naples.
Yes, there are. A few boats, too.
Yeah, just briefly, I spoke to the club down there over spring break. Fantastic group. Their biggest luncheon crowd ever for their scholarship luncheon,
nice.
Steve. They wanted to hear about NIL and what's going on at Michigan and how Michigan's handling it. I gave them a little inside pool, and I think they really enjoyed it. But wouldn't you know it, a couple came up to me, Steve, together. They clearly had something on their mind. And I thought maybe they want to talk about my classes or maybe a mutual acquaintance or somebody we knew or just to thank me. Nope. I was on their list of people to complain about Peacock.
No.
Yes. Peacock. They've said they've reached out to Regents, to Ward Manuel himself, maybe even Santa Ono, about the poor quality of the Peacock service going out at their home. They were frustrated. So, Steve, what do you say about Peacock?
I find that I can't watch anything else because it takes me 2 minutes to load on, and it takes me about 30 to 45 seconds to load off. So maybe that's what streaming services want. They want to make it hard for you to channel surf. It just stinks.
Paramount's the same way. Paramount, mine sticks there for a while before the menu comes up, and it's a little frustrating.
This is a topic that I'm going to lead into just briefly, very briefly, but this is where Peacock comes into play. The ACC is determining that they're going to do rev share with teams based on television ratings for football.
Correct. Yeah, this is a big deal.
And
by the way, we're going to go this way eventually.
And I'm just thinking, I'm just trying to imagine what if the Big Ten decided to do this as well. And just briefly, I'm going to tell you that the day that they announce whoever is playing on week 1 on Peacock or week 2 on Peacock or week 5 on Peacock, they will just go straight ahead and sue the government.
Okay.
Sue with the government to sue our broadcast partners because you're not going to get ratings on Peacock. And if you're not getting ratings, you're not getting paid.
Yeah.
And that's the way things are on ACC. The ACC doesn't have a deal with Peacock, but the Big Ten does. The ACC has the ACC network, which is probably just a small step ahead
fractionally
of Peacock, and they're going to have the same problem. There are going to be teams relegated, to be playing on these little watch networks, and they're basically being dug their own grave for them as they sit there and watch.
Newsflash, it's coming. It's coming to the Big Ten. In one form or another, Michigan will get a bigger share than, sorry, H, but they're going to get a bigger share than Purdue. That's coming, whether that's in the form of a super conference or the next TV contract for the Big Ten. It's coming. So that's a great thing to look for because all these relationships with all these, there will be tiers of quality of service that you are on, and it will affect your payout. That is very interesting, Steve. I love it.
As Nick Bakay used to say, advantage, Michigan.
Yes. I met 1980 Michigan football captain Andy Canavino there, who famously, I believe, Bo called his best captain ever. He looks great. He was at the event. He actually came up afterwards and said hi. So he was down in Naples. That was a lot of fun, Steve.
That was a team that lost like its first couple of games or two of its first three, and then came back and gave Bo his first Rose Bowl win.
Correct. They in a playoff, they would have been one of the teams that you would have in a current playoff. They would have been a team that would have been one of the favorites, I think, the way they finished the season. So, Steve, I had a little fun. I actually participated in an NIL actual advertisement for a pretty popular, I found out, local clothing company out of Detroit. Did you hear about this, Steve? I think I shared this.
Yes, because you told me about it.
Yes.
But I've also seen it, and I want to know where your SAG card is. Have you gotten your SAG card yet?
So here's what happened. So I'll link to this in the show notes. But a local company called Sana Detroit, and what do they make? They make super high-end streetwear. These are like fancy graphic or, text-based gear that is like sweatsuits and sweatshirts and long shirts and things like that and hoodies. But one of the hoodies might sell for $150, Steve. It's all locally made, all that kind of stuff. And the guy behind it's a guy named Michael Sana. Well, when I was in Naples, I got a call from an agent who I happen to know that works with my class and helps our class. And she said, hey, we got this deal with both basketball programs for Sana Line, and they want to film an ad. I'm like, go on. And they go, they need someone to play the mad professor. And they asked, hey, do you know anybody? She says, I think I've got the guy. So what they did, they ended up with me and Namari Burnett from the men's basketball team. We filmed for 2 hours in this like haunted house type setting that is like Dr. Frankenstein's lab. Namari Burnett is down on a slab, and I look like Einstein, gloves, crazy hat, crazy goggles. We filmed, Steve. These segments are probably going to be like 15-second TikTok things. We filmed for over 2 hours. Okay, they had lighting guys, they had cameras, they had smoke, they had the whole thing.
You were involved in the real deal.
Yeah, and so I don't know if I've seen all the content yet. I've seen their teaser, which was already published by the time we did this podcast, and then another one. But basically, I'm flipping around and doing all kinds of stuff and mixing potions. I flip a switch. I say, time for madness in a goofy voice, and pull the switch, and Namari Burnett, they flash to him and he comes to life. And the concept was, I'm creating the perfect athlete, right, in my lab. It was fun. It was wild. A couple of the football coaches came by. Jared Wangler stopped by.
I'm envious.
In the shooting.
It
was nuts. It was really fun. By the way, Namari Burnett, what a great young man. He was really cool. We talked for a little bit.
He didn't move a whole lot in the ad that I saw, but when he did, it was good.
Oh, yeah. He did really good.
It was good.
So I hope
you were the star.
Thank you.
You were the star, and you did it naturally. You were not some radio writer trying to be a TV guy, and it looks like really, really bad pop. No. You did a great job.
You have to see it. So some of you are hearing this for the first time. I'll put links on mvictors.com. I'll put links to the YouTube. I put it up in show notes. Or you can go to Sana Detroit. I'm sure they'll show all this stuff. By the way, no, I am not going to get my SAG card, Steve. I kid you not. My line was 3 words. Time for madness. We cut this. I said it like 8 times. On time 9, I sat there holding my hand on the switch, and I said, line. Because I forgot my line. I forgot what I was supposed to say. I don't know how, Steve. It was also incredibly hot. Like you hear about sets being hot and the lights being hot. Like I was wearing this wig. I started to drip sweat. It was crazy. So, yeah, I feel like I had an actual film experience. And it was a lot of fun. So look for that.
I think in your office, you should probably just have a monitor just playing it over and over and over and over and over again. We'll mute the sound, but I think you just need to add it to your collection.
You guys will crack up about, though, how well it's produced, like, as an advertisement. So look for that. Steve, we got to talk about football a little bit. Did you see that Bryce Underwood was on the Rich Eisen Show?
Of course.
Boy, is he a beast. I don't know if Rich Eisen is small, but yes. he filled up the whole chair. And he quickly declared that he's going to win 2 Heismans and a Natty. And what fuels him? People who don't think he's going to be good enough as a freshman to play quarterback. That's what he told Rich Eisen. What do you make of this, Steve? Or do we hear anything else from the football team?
I think we've known that Michigan football fans love to talk trash, and I'm one of them, and you are too, and so is everybody else. And so we love hearing that. We absolutely love hearing that Ohio State's run is going to be over.
Yes.
Which is what he managed to tell LeBron.
But we are going to do a spring game. We do know that. Some other teams have canceled it. They don't want people to get film, like Nebraska and stuff like that. But we are going to have it.
Nebraska said they're not doing a spring game because they feel that their players will be taken away by poachers.
Ouch. Ouch. You don't want to be that.
I mean, what is this? I mean, people are going to Memorial Stadium with guns and little furry cats over their furry caps over their ears, and then all of a sudden take somebody out away, and
I have a feeling, at least at home, most of the Nebraska fans are well armed, Steve. So let's hope that not happens. Okay, so we did hear from the coordinators today, including Chip Lindsey. Did you learn anything?
Here's the two big things you should know. They will not announce who the starter will be after spring ball. They just won't do it. They will not. They will not do this. And I'll tell you why they won't do this is because you want to make sure that you still have a quarterback roster.
Sure.
Going into summer camp.
It's Bryce.
If somebody says Bryce is starting on game one, everybody's leaving. Okay,
yeah.
And you don't have a quarterback room, and if you made the wrong bet, Bryce Underwood gets injured, then your whole season is over before it begins.
Sure.
Number two, offensive coordinator Chip Lindsey says the reps will be spread out evenly to all the quarterbacks. All right. So what you need to know about this is they're doing this to ensure that those said players that will eventually lose the job, and I'm not saying who's going to win or lose, but those that eventually lose the job got a fair shake. The second thing, of course, is if you're going to invest in Bryce Underwood as your quarterback and make that decision known, you'd be giving him all the reps that you could possibly let him handle. But that is not what they're going to do, and I believe them when they're going to make sure that they've got the right guy and they want to present a picture where everybody got a fair shake so that they have a roster full of quarterbacks when it comes to August.
Well, I'm excited. If it's nice weather, Steve, there's going to be a lot of people there just to see Mr. Bryce out there play. Yeah. We'll see that. They also just announced another autograph signing, Steve. Guess how much the tickets are for the privilege to go get something signed?
I do not know.
$100. Okay. And do you need to buy a ticket if you just want to hang out? Yes, you do. $100, and it's sponsored by Champion Circle. So that will go to fund NIL stuff. Steve, boy, we spent a lot of time talking about the NFL draft because it was in Detroit and for other reasons. But we've potentially got 4 guys in Loveland, Will Johnson, Mason Graham, Kenneth Grant, of course, who could potentially go in the first round, which would be pretty exciting.
Looks like Mason Graham's going to be Michigan's first pick, most likely to the Jaguars at 5, and possibly falling back to the Jets at number 7 if the Jaguars don't select him. Will Johnson is going to fall, unfortunately. He's originally a top 5 NFL pick when the season started. He didn't play much in his senior season. Didn't participate in the combine, isn't doing an individual workout because reportedly he did some damage to his hamstring, which was not his original injury. He becomes a big gamble at this point for teams, and it's going to hurt him in his rookie contract, not his secondary contract, because I like his game. He is a winner, and I think some year people will go back and wonder why he fell so much in the draft, forgetting the story. But if you aren't 100%, and you go into workout, you are going to get dinged lower when proving it. More so than, say, hiding it and keep people guessing. But those that will be selected first is Heisman Trophy winner Travis Hunter. And another corner out of Texas, Jahadi Barron, might be selected above Will Johnson as well. But, it's kind of a crapshoot. I wish Will Johnson the best throughout the process. And injuries just stink, but it's also part of the NFL.
So, yeah, I happen to know each one of these guys pretty well. They've taken multiple classes except for Kenneth Grant. Actually got to know Will and Colston pretty well, like office hours type stuff. They're just both great kids. I really wish them the best. Some people who were saying that Will shut it down, he was definitely injured. He had a serious turf toe issue and all that. So I wish these guys the best. And obviously all 4 of them were a huge part of why we won a national championship. And to potentially hear their names called in the first round, really well-deserving, and I look forward to seeing what these guys do.
Colson Loveland, one of your students, is trending higher. He'll probably be the second tight end taken in the draft behind Penn State's Tyler Warren. But more and more people are saying that Loveland isn't the number 2 tight end. He's more like a 1A or 1B. And with the Saints looking to use the number 9 overall pick on a tight end in the most recent mock drafts, Loveland, who was being looked in at the number 20 spot to Denver, could go up to number 14 to Indy, where the Colts seem to be a lock for picking a tight end. They'll just decide on who's the best tight end available. Of course, all of these mock drafts change all the time, and they'll change again at the end of the individual workouts, which are coming up over the next few weeks. But that being said, this is what it's looking like right now. And Kenneth Grant, he may not be available for the Lions at 28. I know Sam Webb wants him to be there. I don't know if this is truth, Greg, or just lazy work, but in many of the mocks I see, Jim Harbaugh is taking the highest-rated Wolverine available at 22, and that could be Kenneth Grant.
There has been like this thing of the Chargers picking up not only Michigan players, but also formerly recruited Michigan players like Deshaun Hand, rather. So
Najee Harris, I think, is now there.
Yeah, right. So even St. Just, who left Michigan under some odd terms, apparently was signed by the Chargers. I assume they worked that out, so we'll see. Steve, great episode, man. But I think we have time for things that you only care about. I might even have one.
Nobody cares. Nobody cares.
Everybody knows nobody cares.
No one cares.
Nobody cares.
I care.
Then do whatever you want.
All right, Greg, I'm going to start. Rich Rod bans West Virginia University football players from making TikTok dancing videos.
Wow.
Yeah. Now, this is what he said in a quote. They're going to be on it, so I'm not banning them from watching TikTok. I'm just banning them from dancing on it. It's like, look, we try to have a hard edge or whatever, and you're out there in your tights dancing on TikTok. Ain't quite the image of our program that I want. And Greg, I got to ask you the question. When did Rich Rod ever care about image?
Oh, burn. Oh, no. Were you at that? I was at that. I was at that thing. I was at the bus or the award when that went down. It was nuts.
And it killed his image.
Yeah, it sure did.
Absolutely killed his image. And, of course, having an affair with an executive assistant works in the Arizona football program doesn't help with your image either. So why does Rich Rod care about image?
Shots are fired, and things only Steve cares about. Steve.
I'll tell you what, though. There is one thing that I want to add a little caveat.
Yeah.
I mean, I really don't need Rich Rod giving Ryan Day advice about how to handle his own team by banning dancing videos.
Tell me.
Well, Rich Rod's concerned about dancing videos kind of not making them aggressive and have a hard edge. Meanwhile, Ryan Day thinks that his team has a hard enough edge when performing all their dancing pregame videos and things that they do right before the game starts. I don't need Rich Rod to give Ryan Day advice.
I have a feeling the Ryan Day gift will continue to keep giving, so let's hope so. Steve, I have a quick one. I noticed once again, as we won the tournament, one of the things, yes, there's a championship belt that surfaced, and there were medals, and there's confetti and all that stuff. But the newspaper fake headline has not gone away. How many, the players holding up, I'm looking at it now, it's like Indianapolis Star champions, right? Michigan with a fake photo. How many of those guys know what that is, Steve, what they're holding in their hand? There must be a few of those guys going, what is this? What is this thing? At some point, Steve, they're going to stop doing that. Now, we like it. That's how we kind of identify on our office walls and our homes and our shrines. That's what we do. Like now, we started taking Michigan dailies, covers and publishing them. But holding the fake newspaper still cracks me up, man.
Yeah. They still do it. I think that's been going on since we were kids.
Yeah. So anyway, it just amused me. So these are things that amuse Greg, I guess.
I think the largest boos went to Tony Petitti.
Did they? That's good.
Yeah.
That's good. I love it.
People, I think, will be happy to hear that.
All right, Steve, we're hanging in another banner. What else you got as we close out here?
Michigan basketball, your Big Ten champions.
And maybe more. March Madness is upon us, so Time for madness.
Time for madness. Blue, Greg.
Go Blue.